Hi, it's Lindsay with Little for a While, and if you've been with me so far, then we've talked about a pattern, we've cut out all of the pieces, and now we're going to cut it out of the actual fabric. So what you're going to do is take your first piece and lay it down on your fabric. Now there's different ways that a fabric will call for you to cut it. Like this one says to cut it on the fold. It says lower front and back, cut 2 on the fold. So that means you're going to cut this exact piece twice. So you want to look for where it says to cut it on the fold. Now it usually is a rectangle shaped piece that has arrows pointing toward the outer line, and that's where it wants you to put it on the fold. So I've laid it down on the fold. You also want to kind of position it on the fabric so that you can serve as much fabric as possible. If you're going to be using other pieces on the fabric, then you can, leave space or whatever, but you want to try to get the most out of each piece of fabric. So you're going to lay it down, and the easiest way if you're a beginner is just to pin it. I've already cut this a little bit, so yours won't be cut, but anyway, you pin it. I like to have the end of the pin kind of sticking out of it so they're easier to pull out as you're sewing along. And just about every 3 to 4 inches, maybe 5, is about right. You just want it to keep it from moving out of place. Keep looking at your fold, make sure that it's staying in place. Also, you're going to want to make sure that you're cutting the right size. Like I'm cutting the largest size, so for me I don't need to do anything to the piece, but if you were going to cut a smaller size, you could either take the piece, and there's different lines that show where the sizes are, and you could kind of fold down and then just gently fold it along so that you have just the size that you need. That gets kind of tricky when you're going over curves. So the best way to do it is to put over a piece of interfacing, butcher paper, freezer paper, whatever, and just trace the size that you need so that it's easier to do. Now when you do that, make sure to label it, number 9, sleeve B&D, cut to size 3. So that way you know what size it's for and what piece it is, because it's easy to get mixed up. You might even put the pattern M6155, because sometimes if you're cutting multiple, if you're getting all crazy with your designing and you're using pieces from one pattern, pieces from another to kind of make your own unique thing, which I do all the time, you might get a piece out of place. And so if it has the number on it, then you can find its home with other pieces. So that might be beneficial. Okay. Yeah, let's finish pinning and then cut it out. When you get a little bit more skilled at cutting, then you don't have to pin if you don't want to. You can, buy little weights, or sometimes I just throw on kids' toys or a Sharpie pen, or really whatever I have around me that will just keep it in place from moving all over while I'm cutting. So, and then you might see something that looks like a little triangle on your pattern as you're cutting. You're like, I wonder what that's all about. That's to help you. It's called a dart. It's to help you match up your pieces where they're supposed to go as you're sewing. So if you want, what you're going to do is just cut up and then down, and to make a little triangle pointing up, just right where that is. Another great tool to use when you're cutting, if you have one, is a rotary cutter. Now you'll need to have a mat or some heavy-duty cardboard or something to cut on, but it's really easy for these straight edges like this. Would make it a breeze. I don't use one right now because I have lots of little kids in the house, and if I'm up late one night, which is usually when I'm cutting, and I'm tired, I don't want to clean up my mess or something, and I'm in the space, like in the living room hanging out with my family, and I leave it out, or someone grabs it when I'm not paying attention, that could really hurt them because they're really sharp. So, great tool if you are sure no one's going to get a hold of it. Okay, so I've got my piece cut out. Now what you're going to do, since it says cut to unfold, is rearrange your fabric so that you can now put this on the fold again. Alright. Now this time you're just going to use your fabric kind of to make sure you're on the edge there. Make sure you've got enough. I want both pieces to be the same. Okay. Alright, and then you just cut it out again. Alright. Alright, so now that we have the lower front down, if you want, you can just keep that pattern piece kind of hooked on there, and maybe just, for space sake, fold it up like this. That way, it's kind of out of the way. But if you leave the pattern piece on there, you might remember what it's for. If you might, sometimes maybe if you're doing pants, there's a front and the back, and it can just get confusing sometimes. So if you want, you can leave the pattern piece attached until you're ready to actually sew it. Totally up to you, but it can be beneficial sometimes. So, alright, I'm going to do this. I'm going to use a different fabric for my bodice, which is the top part of your shirt or dress. So, just get out that piece, and these are much smaller pieces, so alright. Now, again, if you are not doing the biggest piece, that would be just cutting around the outer edge, for this piece it's really going to be better if you